The Quran continues to surprise me, even though I've read it from cover to cover in English, at least. I just came across a couple of verses today I just wanted to share with you, which surprised me, even though I'd read them before. And by the way, I was reading this book called Classical Islamic Theology. It's a Cambridge companion. It's an academic work. I'm reading it through just to educate myself. And the first chapter is called Qur'an and Hadith by Professor Abdul Halim. He's a very distinguished professor at SOAS, the University of London, and is a brilliant translator of the Qur'an. And his celebrated translation of the Qur'an into English, this is it here, the Qur'an, a new translation by Professor Abdul Halim, published by Oxford University Press, which is the gold standard, I'm told, in academic courses at universities on the Qur'an, at least when people refer to the English, of course. Anyway, the point of this is I was reading this chapter, very familiar, actually, to be honest, with its themes, but I wanted to refresh myself again. And then it says things which are beautifully put. It says the Qur'an describes itself as a scripture which God sent down to his prophet. And this expression, sent down, in its various derivations, is used in the Qur'an well over 200 times. In Arabic, this locution conveys immediately and implicitly the principle that the origin of the book is heavenly, and that Muhammad is no more than its receptacle. God is the one who speaks in the book. Muhammad is addressed as, O Prophet, O Messenger, do not do. They ask you, say. This last command appearing more than 300 times. Sometimes the prophet is reproached, and then it gives two verses, 9, 43 and 80, verses 1 to 11. Now, I looked up these passages, having read them before, and I thought, I'll just look them up, And I was just stunned again to read Surah 80. Again, I wanted to share it with you because I thought it was very revealing, not only about the Quran, but also its relationship with the Prophet, to the Prophet himself. And Abdul Halim, in his translation, has a little paragraph before his translation introducing the chapter. Very helpful, concise, to the point. And he says, a Meccan surah, so it was revealed in the first stage of the Prophet's career, rather than later on in Medina. While the Prophet was speaking to some disbelieving notables, hoping to convert them, a blind Muslim man came up to learn from him. But in his eagerness to attract the disbelievers to Islam, the Prophet frowned at him. And that's the title in English of this chapter, He Frowned. This is chapter 80 of the Quran, He Frowned. The Prophet is then reproached and told not to concern himself with the disbelievers. So the Prophet himself is reproached by God in the Quran. In the second paragraph, which I'll also read in a second, there is a condemnation of man's ingratitude. This is the human race in general. Man becomes self-satisfied and forgets his origin and his final return to God. Excuse me. So I'm going to read this chapter mainly for the first section where there's a lesson to the Prophet here. So it begins in an English translation, in the name of God, the most compassionate, most merciful. He frowned and turned his attention away, simply because the blind man came to him, interrupting. You never know, O Prophet, perhaps he may be purified, or he may be mindful, benefiting from the reminder. As for the one who is indifferent, you gave him your undivided attention, even though you are not to blame if he would not be purified. As for the one who came to you, eager to learn, being in awe of God, you were inattentive to him. But no, this revelation is truly a reminder. So let whoever wills be mindful of it. It is written on pages held in honor, highly esteemed, purified by the hands of angel scribes, honorable and virtuous. extraordinary passage. This passage, and there are others, as I mentioned, critical of some things the prophet did, proves that the prophet delivered the revelations in all honesty, even when his own self was being criticized, it seems, by God himself. So that this speaks of a very noble and beautiful way that God reproaches the prophet in a quite gentle way, I think, for being inattentive, it seems. And then in the second part of this surah, Surah 80, He Frowned, we read a reminder to those people, mankind, who deny the resurrection and the last day. And these are very powerful, powerful words. Condemned are disbelieving humans. How ungrateful they are to God. From what substance did he create them? He created them from a sperm drop and ordained their development. Then he makes the way easy for them, then causes them to die and be buried. Then, when he wills, he will resurrect them. But no, they have failed to comply with what he ordered. Let people then consider their food, how we pour down rain in abundance, and how meticulously split the earth open for sprouts, causing grains to grow in it, as well as grapes and greens and olives and palm trees and dense orchards and fruit and fodder, all as a means of sustenance for you and your animals. Then, when the overwhelming, the deafening blast, as the last day, comes to pass, on that day every person will flee from their own siblings, and even their mother and father, and even their spouse and children. For then everyone will have enough concern of their own. On that day, some faces will be bright, laughing and rejoicing, while other faces will be dusty, cast in gloom. Those are the disbelievers, the wicked ones. So it's an extraordinary chapter, as I say. It really brings home the sense of how the prophet delivered the revelations that he received with complete honesty, even when God is addressing him and in a sense criticizing him. And there's several passages like this in the Quran. What a remarkable book, how honest it is. And anyway, I just wanted to share with you my renewed amazement at the Quran when I read it again and again. Till next time.